What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today, holy crap, it is a massive day for Destiny 2, and that's because Bungie, out of the blue, like they only announced this yesterday, unlocked every single armor mod in the game except for raid mods and seasonal artifact mods for all players starting today. So if you log on the game and you look at an armor piece, you will have every single Elemental Well mod, Charge with Light mod, and Warmind Cell mod unlocked. So you can go absolutely wild with build crafting before Lightfall arrives. So in this video, I wanted to go over the best, most powerful, most meta mods and mod combos that were previously only available through randomly turning up at 801 one day. Most players didn't have access to all of these mods until today. And so let's start here with Elemental Well mods. Generally within PvE, Elemental Well builds are the top of the meta. So the first element on deck is Solar, and starting us off, we have the Bountiful Wells mod. So this is going to make your well producing mods generate more wells. So let's say you have an Elemental Ordnance on, you get a well for getting a grenade kill, you have Bountiful Wells now, you get 2 wells. Then you can start stacking that Elemental Ordnance mod, and more copies will make even more wells appear. So you can be getting a grenade kill and getting like 4 wells popping up. It's pretty nuts. But next up, we have Explosive Well Maker, letting you create solar elemental wells with explosive damage. So grenade launchers, including the Wither Horde, rocket launchers, the Xenophage, your grenades, all of that stuff is explosive damage. This is one of the easiest ways to make elemental wells in the entire game. And importantly, they're always going to be solar, which means you can be using an Arc Grenadier Titan with those storm grenades and use this to make solar elemental wells, which combos with our next mod here, Well of Life, where if you pick up a solar elemental well, you get healing for like 10 seconds. So it's basically like standing in a Warlock healing rift, but just running around. All you gotta do is pick up a solar elemental well. Huge wombo combo right there, and Well of Life is definitely one of the best payoffs for getting those solar elemental wells. Guys, moving on from there, however, we're going to switch elements to Void. And the first one up on the docket is Reaping Wellmaker. So after activating your class ability, your next weapon kill is guaranteed to spawn a Void Elemental Well. Especially on Hunter, where you're dodging all the time, this is one of the most consistent ways to get Void Elemental Wells. And one of the best payoffs for getting Void Elemental Wells is our next mod here, Well of Tenacity. So picking them up will give you a huge degree of damage resistance. I think it's like 50%. Now it only lasts for 5 seconds, but 5 seconds of being nearly unkillable is definitely a pretty powerful feature. But next up, we have Arc, and the first mod on the docket is Seeking Wells. So elemental wells you create will travel along the ground towards yourself and your allies. Guys, this is one of my favorite mods because once you put it on, you're gonna have a really hard time making a build without it. It makes everything so much more convenient. You can stick behind cover in safety and still get those wells, which are usually super important for your build to function. Very, very good mod. Moving on from there, we have Well of Ions. So picking up an Arc Elemental Well specifically will increase melee damage. So this is a key feature on a lot of melee focused builds. Definitely something you want to put on if you're doing anything related to melee. But moving on from there, we have Stasis. And the first mod we have here is also, I think, the best for Stasis, Elemental Shards. So this makes your Stasis shards that are unbelievably easy to create. Just put on certain fragments for certain builds, and you are just pumping out Stasis shards like it's nothing. It makes them count as Stasis Elemental Wells. Now, there is a cooldown, but it's still one of the most consistent ways to constantly get those effects from Elemental Wells. So use this combined with Font of Might to increase Stasis weapon damage when you get a Stasis Elemental Well, aka a shard, and you'll basically have 100% uptime on that damage increase. But moving on from there, guys, we have Elemental Time Dilation. Elemental Well mods that have time limited benefits can now stack stack, which increases the benefit. This is an absolute wombo combo with the Void Elemental Well mod, Well of Tenacity. Like I said, it provides a huge damage reduction, but it only lasts for 5 seconds. You can put on Elemental Time Dilation and a bunch of Well of Tenacities, and you can get that up to like 15 seconds of a 50% damage reduction. Actually nutty. And then next up, we have Supreme Wellmaker. So casting your super spawns 3 stasis elemental wells near you. So this is actually one of the best ways to trigger Font of Might for a boss damage phase. Often, there's not a lot of enemies nearby, and you don't want to be taking the time to go and kill them to spawn these wells. You can just use Supreme Wellmaker, cast a super, or even get one guy, let's say the guy with the Well of Radiance, to use this, and then you have a stasis subclass, collect those stasis wells, and then boost the damage of your Reed's Regret or stasis rocket launcher or whatever you're using to DPS. So definitely consider that one. Guys, moving on from there, we then have Charged with Light mods. So up on the docket first, we have Solar, and the first one we have here is the Blast Radius mod. So become charged with light by rapidly defeating enemies with grenade launchers and rocket launchers. Can you think of a thing that's easier to get rapid kills with? After that, guys, we have another way to easily become charged with light: Sustained Charge. Get kills with auto rifles, trace rifles, machine guns. Again, really easy way to get charged with light. But after that, we have some of the payoffs. Firstly, firepower. So while you're charged with light, you can use up 1 stack after you throw your grenade. It's going to give you a chunk of grenade energy back. This is a great mod for any grenadier builds. But next up, we have Argent Ordnance, where consuming a stack of Charge with Light will increase your rocket launcher damage. Rocket launchers are so meta right now. There are so many good ones. This is fantastic. Now, it's not going to stack with other damage increasing things, like if you're in a well, it won't have any effect. But if you're running solo, if you're using not a Warlock, you don't want to get Radiant, whatever, this can be super useful. But then we have 2 mods that do very similar things. Supercharged grants 2 additional stacks of Charge with Light, and then Charged Up grants 1 additional one. So there's certain Charge with Light mods that will have a greater effect depending on how many stacks of Charge with Light you have, so you can do some pretty nutty things if you're really getting like all the way up to 5 stacks. Moving on from there, guys, we have Void mods, and the first one we have here is going to be Precision Charge. So get charged with light by getting rapid kills with hand cannons, scout rifles, bows. Definitely just use something like the Trinity Ghoul, and this is going to be one of the easiest ways to get charged with light in the game. Then we have a really interesting one, Charge Harvester. So when you're not charged with light, any kill or assist has a chance to give you charge with light. So you don't have to use, a specific type of weapon. You can use whatever you want, throw this on, and it's going to get you charged with light. Moving on from there, stacks on stacks, which is going to give you an extra stack of charge with light whenever you earn one. So instead of getting charge with light times 1, you instantly go up to charge with light times 2. And this is a great pairing with those supercharged mods we looked at in Solar, where you can just really easily accumulate those huge stacks and then dump it all into a massive payoff mod. Next up, Surprise Attack, which is going to increase the damage for sidearms. Especially now that we have like a special sidearm that does a lot of damage, this can absolutely crank out DPS. But moving on from there, we have Arc, and the first couple of mods are some of the most desirable in the game. Of course, Powerful Friends. Now, this has a Charge with Light feature that frankly nobody cares about. This is all about granting that plus 20 mobility, a staple on hunter builds to give them 100 mobility and also let them have ridiculous other stats. And in that same vein, we have Radiant Light, giving you plus 20 strength, again a staple on melee builds. But importantly, this also has casting your super causes nearby allies to become charged with light. So this is a huge combo with high energy fire for raid boss damage phases. So the guy who has Radiant Light puts down his well, right, which causes all nearby allies using high energy fire to become charged with light and get that damage bonus. And because they're shooting a boss, high energy fire, which stacks with well and all that stuff, is going to be up for the entire damage phase. So very cheeky way to squeeze some extra damage out. Next up, a great way to become charged with light is Swift Charge. So get rapid kills with pulse rifles, sidearms, or submachine guns, which are super meta right now, become charged with light. And not only that, if you're using a pulse rifle, this will drop special ammo for allies. So in higher level content, this can be very, very useful in keeping everyone's ammo reserves up. But next up we have Striking Light, and again we're kind of only interested in the secondary perk. This one will give you damage resistance against combatants, so PvE enemies, when sprinting. This is often forgotten, but this is a really easy way to get some extra survivability, and you're going to be sprinting, running around almost all the time, so this is active just so often. And then guys, moving on from there, the last arc Charge with Light mod we're looking at, it's got to be Lucent Blade. So similar to Argent Ordnance, but for swords, and very, very effective at doing this. And guys, because there are no stasis Charge with Light mods, that concludes this category. However, keep in mind that Charge with Light mods are the only ones that work in PvP. So definitely a lot of players will throw on a high energy fire to try to squeeze more damage out of one of the many ways of getting Charge with Light. Moving on from there, however, we have Warmind Cell mods. Now, these have definitely fallen out of the meta quite a bit. However, I mean, right now, one of the best, most meta weapons in the game is the Aikilos SMG version 3, which can spawn Warmind Cells. So, first of all, we have, in the solar category, honestly, one of the best, Wrath of Rasputin. This costs a measly 1 energy, and it says solar splash damage will spawn Warmind Cells. So, solar rocket launchers like the Galahorn, solar grenade launchers, your actual solar grenades, the Xenophage will all trigger this. So this is a really easy and cheap way to just add the ability to make Warmind Cells to a build. And next up, we have Fireteam Medic. So destroying a Warmind Cell will create a burst of healing to you and your nearby allies. This is great because Bungie really nerfed the damage of Warmind Cells, so stuff like this that offers utility instead has gone up in value. But moving on from there to Void, definitely one of the best ones to use is Power of Rasputin. So you gain a bonus to weapon damage against enemies that are near Warmind Cells. And guys, Power of Rasputin stacks with everything. So you can be in a well, use a tether against the boss, and then if you have Power of Rasputin, it's going to give you additional 10% damage. And this is actually a wombo combo with another Void mod, Grasp of the Warmind. So you can pick up, carry, and throw Warmind Cells. So you can literally go and create a Warmind Cell off of ads, pick it up, and then throw it at the feet of the boss to trigger Power of Rasputin and get that extra damage against that boss. That's actually used if you're really trying to go for the uber ultra maximum DPS against certain bosses. Moving on from there, guys, we then have another great Void Warmind Cell mod, Cellular Suppression. So, damaging a Warmind Cell will suppress nearby enemies. It's like an on-activation blinding grenade, and you do less damage so you can activate it more often. That's pretty cool. And another one here is Warmind's Protection. So you take reduced damage from enemies near Warmind Cells. So with this, like, you wouldn't be blowing up Warmind Cells, you're just keeping them around the map and just getting that damage mitigation. Great in higher level content where blowing up a Warmind Cell wouldn't even do that much damage against the enemies around you. So might as well get that damage mitigation. And pretty much every single mod I just covered in the Void category all combos with this last mod, Warmind's Longevity. Warmind Cells that you create will last longer. So, Power of Rasputin, getting more damage for a longer period. If you're using the Suppressor mod, you're going to be able to do that more. The Protection mod, you're going to have those up longer. So great combo. This plus any of the mods I mentioned can actually be pretty darn saucy. But guys, moving on from there, last off, we have Arc Warmind Cell mods, and honestly, these are the least meta of all of them. And first of all, though, we do have Strength of Rasputin. So this is actually going to let you pick up Warmind Cells, the arc mods do. So you just run over them and then you get their effect. This gives you more melee energy. So if you're using a melee build with a Warmind weapon like the Aikilo shotgun, honestly, throw this on. It's going to be really easy to spawn Warmind Cells with your shotgun and then just get more melee energy. And another one you should maybe consider is an expensive one, Sheltering Energy, but this mod will let you pick up those Warmind Cells and then get an overshield. Again, if you're not interested in using the Warmind Cells for killing enemies and you just want more survivability, this is definitely an option. And guys, again, there are no stasis Warmind Cell mods, and so that's it. Those are what I believe to be some of the best, most meta mods in the game that you should try to incorporate into your builds, or frankly, build builds around them. Definitely, guys, this is going to be a huge change going forward, and the build crafting is going to explode over the next month. I hope you enjoyed this video and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.